Well, 3 rounds down, we're now heading on to the 4th, and it's a 10th visit in the Euroformula Open Championship to the Hungaroring circuit. Around this 4.381 kilometre circuit layout, we're going to undertake 17 laps, 30 minutes max, around the home of the Hungarian Grand Prix that is now currently... Well, it's restored back, but with a new look. It's been renovated as we now take a trip around this circuit in track temperature conditions of 43.5 degrees, with the air temperature standing at 29.7 and the humidity standing at 30% so far. A packed grandstand here joining us here this weekend as they're looking forward to watching the Euroformula action take place. And on the front row of the grid and on pole position, it's the pole once again. Timotej Kaharczyk on top for a 3rd time this season. Of course, his first occasion was at Portimao, the 2nd at Hockenheim, and now once again here at Hungaroring. But he has never, ever taken a victory on a weekend that he has taken pole already in the past. Michael Shin, 2nd on the grid, will be joining him on the front row, a young man who certainly brought his best to the fold. After taking his first victory back at Hockenheim Ring in race 1, Jose Garfias will be lined up just behind him as well in 3rd place in car number 99, now looking to also edge himself into win territory again after getting his first back at Hockenheim in race 2. George Morgan here, your commentator. Joining me once again, it's Chris Stevens.
Hello, George, and I must start this race broadcast by apologising to Nilsson Racing because it looked like in qualifying that they had an unsafe release. And while that was the case and they picked up a €300 fine for it, it turns out that it was actually because, I believe it was Michael Shin, was sent out too early. You're not allowed to send cars out into the fast lane until the session actually starts. But for some reason, just a misjudgment, a little mistake from the motorpark team, he was sent out early, which then caused Yevon David and Fernando Barrichello to be sent out too early as well in reaction to it. So Nilsson weren't expecting cars to be anywhere near them when the session went green, and that's why we saw that unsafe release. And you'll see a slight change from the result in qualifying because Yevon David, Michael Shin and Fernando Barrichello had their best laps from qualifying removed as a result of being let out into the pit lane too early. So that has demoted Yevon David from the front row of the grid down to 8th, Fernando Barrichello from 6th, which would have been reverse grid pole for race 3, down to 10th position. Actually, Michael Shin had a 2nd good lap in there, so he actually still starts on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, not a bad place to be for Michael Shin, and he will obviously contest for yet another race win of the season. But Timotej Kaharczyk has got some catching up to do in his own mind after a tricky round last time at Hockenheim, and obviously Portimao as well. Though I say that, I mean, Hockenheim was okay. And in fact, we'll take a look back at Hockenheim Ring indeed. And starting from pole position, it was a slow getaway from Timotej Kaharczyk. Then Michael Shin gladly sniped away from him. And Yevon David did the same on the run in towards turn 1. Would eventually see Kaharczyk and Yevon David doing battle once more, but it would lead to a collision between the two title rivals after their duel back at Spa-Francorchamps as well. It ushered in again, this time at Hockenheim Ring. The number 9 also making places of Everett Stack, who once again put on a good display, but it wasn't as good as Michael Shin, who would go on to register a race win to open up the Hockenheim weekend and his first of the season. Race 2 would then get underway once more, and this time it was the number 32 leading the way of Sean Rashid heading in towards turn 1. We had some rainfall as well through the course of the weekend, especially on Sunday, so conditions started to ramp up as they did through the course of the race. Rashid would be undone by Jose Garfias, who would immediately launch onto the attack. Also, we had side-by-sides, Michael Shin coming close with Sean Rashid once more, and Yevon David was also in the thick of the action as the rain continued to stream down. But there was no stopping Jose Garfias on his return from the FIA Formula 3 Championship, taking a victory in race 2. Race 3 got underway, and it was a blistering start from Yevon David, just creeping and peeping off the line ahead of Everett Stack coming in towards turn 1. Also a great start for Michael Shin, who swept around the outside. The rain returned again, causing somewhat of a complication as Timotej Kaharczyk was also trying to fight his way up through the order, eventually getting himself past Stack and then in pursuit, of course, of Everett Stack as well. So they came down in towards the left-hander, wheel-to-wheel as well elsewhere. Everett Stack coming out of the stadium section before reaching the final echelons of the circuit, but Yevon David would return to the top step once more to further his lead in the championship. And this is how that championship looks right now, with the Sri Lankan Lion leading the way on 163 points, 18 points clear of Koreans Michael Shin in 2nd, as they now look ahead to another race weekend at Hungaroring. Well, with highlights from last time now in the books, we'll take a look at this round, and this is the starting grid. Timothy Kaharczyk back on pole for the third time this season for BVM, starts on the front row along with Michael Shin, last time out a race winner, looking to get his second. Jose Garfias in third, alongside him Everett Stack as well in fourth. Diego Della Torre chasing also some big points this time, and maybe a podium as well, with Benjamin Berta on his return to the championship at his home race weekend. Ed Pearson also returns for Nielsen Racing in seventh. Yevon David, the championship leader, starting from 8th spot. Sean Rashid starts 9th with Fernando Barrichello in 10th, and Finn Green will start from the back row in 11th. So now as the cars get ready to go around on the formation lap, and will very soon form back up onto the grid, Timothy Kaharczyk will be hoping that this time the starting demons don't afflict him once more as they did back at Hockenheimring. The devil returned from Portimao, Chris, and unfortunately it's meant that every occasion we have seen so far, Kaharczyk on pole, he's not been able to win the race.
He just needs to get it off the line, doesn't he? Because here especially, that's like 95% of the job done, because it's so hard to overtake. And so long as you lead out of sort of turns 2 and 3, you're pretty much solid unless you throw it off the road. So Kaharczyk, he's got big pressure on him now. His third pole position of the season. Just get it off the line, Timek, and you'll be solid. Worth keeping an eye out for the Nielsen cars. Of course, Ed Pearson was very miffed after qualifying. They really didn't feel like they maximised the pace they had after 2 very good test days here at this track. And of course, Yevon David from 8th position. Expect him to make forward progress in the early stages of this race.
It's going to be a hard job this weekend for Yevon David. Obviously, outside of the top 6 means he will not get any reverse positions unless he gets something in the race. But as you know, wait,
we lost
for the
Michael
lights.
Shin.
I think we must have. Michael Shin not on the front row, but all the lights are lit up, and it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Shin actually starting from the back of the grid as Timothy Kaharczyk gets a really, really good start this time. No phasing him this time as he comes down in towards turn 1. Yevon David getting a decent start as well. Garfias in second as now Diego Della Torre has a look up the inside too as they now peel through. Coming out of the first corner, going wide is Benjamin Berta as well as they come out of turn 1 through towards turn 2 this time around. Kaharczyk no longer being phased by race starts. Yevon David on the attack as he looks to get past Everett Stack as well as Jose Garfias. Further up the road they go wheel to wheel coming through turn 3, and David moves on up into that 4th spot this time around as well. There's a little bit of grass being kicked up. Sean Rashid towards the rear now side by side with Benjamin Berta, but as they now come through out of turn 4, it's wheel to wheel elsewhere. Fernando Barrichello now this time under attack, this time from the 24 of Ed Pearson, who is looking to charge in his Nielsen Racing car up a spot indeed to get that 6th place. But Yevon David, what a start from 8th to 4th. 4 places gained at the start of the race, and now chasing after fellow motorpark man Diego Della Torre.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. And so Michael Shin must have had some problem on the formation lap that caused him to start from the rear of the field while we were looking at the highlights from Hockenheim. Off the road there. Is that the Nielsen Racing car of Ed Pearson? I believe it is. Yevon David's made great progress, but he's still under pressure from Everett Stack, and David runs off the road himself. There's a lot of gravel out there, and Everett Stack, the American, trying to go around the outside at turn number 13. That's an audacious move out there for 4th position. So it was 4 up, but 1 back down again. Michael Shin now trying to make progress. But this is great news for Timothy Kaharczyk, because the 2 people ahead of him in the championship starting way down the order.
And he's already a second clear of Jose Garfias and trying to pull away, though Garfias is still very much there. There's a big fight brewing further back. Michael Shin trying to get past Ed Pearson once more. Pearson going defensive to the inside, but Shin ahead of the apex. He had a nose in front even prior to entering turn 1, and Shin now moves up into 6th place. So that brings him right into the lead fight now, chasing after fellow title rival Yevon David, a current championship leader. Benjamin Berta under attack as well from a car in behind. Finn Green as well looking to move his way inside the top 10, but Berta keeping him at bay, at least for now. It is still Kaharczyk, Garfias, Diego Della Torre inside the top 3. Everett Stack alongside Yevon David, with Michael Shin also in the mix of all this and trying to gain on the back of the Sri Lankan Lion, who still sits in 5th place.
On board here with Yevon David, the championship leader, seen fighting the car, wrestling the wheel through the long, long right-hander at turn number 5, and a big jump over the curbs at the left-handed element of the chicane as well.
That was commitment.
Turn 7 certainly was. And so now he's got his nearest title rival, Michael Shin, on his back bumper there as well in 5th and 6th position. See a wide moment there from Everett Stack, and chasing after Diego Della Torre for the last spot on the podium for now. And Delator did very well to actually keep the car pointing in the right direction. He had 2 wheels on the grass coming out of turn 7, but kept it on the road. See Yevon David there, the blue and yellow machine, and then Michael Shin, the motorpark car with the green trim on it. Then Ed Pearson now in 7th position after being passed by Shin on that previous lap. Let's see if Shin will go for a move here. He's right in the toe of the championship leader, who goes defensive, and a dive on the inside here from Michael Shin. That's the aggressive Shin we know from this year. Yevon David does the up and under, gets the drag out of the corner, and while that draws you alongside, it doesn't necessarily give you the best line through turn number 2. You can go around the outside there, but Michael Shin will not allow that, and so that is Shinny up into 5th place now.
Yeah, he's really made some places after starting from pretty much the back of the grid, having to recover, and obviously seemingly we thought we would be seeing him on the front row alongside Timek Kaharczyk, because Timek Kaharczyk since being given that respite. A little bit of a moment there coming through turn 5, but Kaharczyk 2.1 now ahead of Jose Garfias, and I think Garfias now being pressurised now, more or less. I know he's not, being Diego Della Torre now 1.8 behind him, but further back, Everett Stack, I think, pressurising Diego Della Torre around turn 5.
I think it was Della Torre locking a wheel into turn 5. He was right to the inside of the track and off the track at turn 9 there as well. And so Everett Stack, the American driver, really piling on the pressure to his teammate, and now going for the move into turn 12 under braking. Very, very close as Della Torre ends up picking up a little bit of the gravel there and running wide, and that makes it slightly easier for Everett Stack to move through after picking up his first podium of the season in Hockenheim last time out. Now going for a second one here in Budapest.
Yeah, got a taste for it clearly. Now Michael Shin will have a chance to move up inside the podium places as well, because Diego Della Torre has faced a little bit of a tricky run through the final portion of that lap. I'll show you, say Diego Della Torre certainly faced a little bit of pressure on that final sector now. Wheel-to-wheel David now under attack as well as Shin goes up the inside of now Diego Della Torre on the run out of turn 1, and the number 44 car now facing scrutiny here from Michael Shin in the Korean. Will have the outside line this time as opposed to the line he had against Yevon David, but manages to pull the moves off. And Yevon David managing to deny the move as well. This is the moment where Stack went up the inside of Diego Della Torre. It was wheel-to-wheel coming through turn 12 and just onto the little patch of gravel there for Diego Della Torre as he went off wide, coming through towards turn 13 again this time. And that opened the door for Michael Shin to then lay down the hammer. This was the view from Yevon David's car on the run into the final sector. And yes, that's what led to Shin moving up a spot and into 4th place now, giving chase after Everett Stack. Jose Garfias, though, 2.7 in front of Everett Stack, is in no man's land at the moment, because he's 2.8 behind Timek Kaharczyk.
Great battling in these early stages, and still 13 and a bit laps of this to go. Timek Kaharczyk now 2.9 seconds to the good over Jose Garfias, who's going for his second podium of the season as well. Sounds weird to be saying that. Oh, lock up there from Pearson going into 13. Front left Pirelli squealing in agony as it locked under braking there. A lateral braking zone, a lateral traction zone there as well in that hairpin turn. There's Garfias, 2.5 ahead of Everett Stack. And then there's Michael Shin, who is putting in some good pace at the moment. Not quite as quick as Stack on that previous lap, but I think he was making a move as well as Michael Shin on that previous lap. So we'll see what he can do once he's in clear air. See if Yevon David can get on the back of Diego Della Torre as well. Half expected Yevon David after that sensational start to then just keep going. It's weird to see Yevon, who's been one of the benchmark drivers in this field for this year, to be dropping back after such a sensational start.
Well, I know many of the drivers, and certainly speaking to many of them in the paddock over the course of the weekend, management of this tyre is very tricky, especially under these circumstances with the hot weather, and Sean Rashid taking a trip into the grass as well. That could have ended in tears. Benjamin Burton now on the tail of him this time. But going back to what I was saying, given the nature of the weather we are experiencing and the ramping up of the track temp, we're now at 45.2 degrees at the moment. It doesn't take a lot for the Pirelli rubber to start shredding and the degradation levels to mount up. So whether it's that Yevon David has just lit up those tyres a little bit too much, and now as a consequence he's forfeiting Delta, I mean, that could be the situation, and now pretty much leaves himself on a plate for Ed Pearson, who's in 7th at the moment.
That's the gap between the second and third place cars. The Virginian, they're in third position. It's funny you say it got a taste for the podium. I was thinking a taste for the champagne, but of course he's actually not of legal age in America, is he? So he can't get a taste for the champagne.
No. The taste for the potential podiums, though, that he could yet come. And he could be on for a second one as well, with obviously this position of P3 for Everett Stacker at the moment. Looking to follow in the footsteps of Brad Benavides, who won here in race 1 last year. So it could be another American up on the podium. And incidentally, we've actually had an American on the podium for the last 2 occasions we've been here to Hungaroring. It was Brad Benavides, who took victory last year in race 1, and Bryce Aaron, who took victory in race 2 the year before in 2023.
Bryce Aaron went on to race in the Indy Next, I believe he's in now, isn't he? And of course, Brad Benavides returning to the FIA Formula 3 series.
Actually started on pole not too long ago.
Didn't he get the podium in Spielberg as well, didn't he?
I think he had a retirement, I think, or something. He had a bit of a tricky moment, I think, coming through. But definitely a pole position, I believe, without question. It was a fantastic performance from Brad Benavides, of course, reigning Euroformula Open champion. And now moving up into the FIA F3 Championship. And, as we now ride on board with Evan David, the Sri Lankan Lion, now looking to recover and garner at least something on the back of Diego De La Torre, the Mexican.
I think De La Torre just ran wide again at turn 9 there, and that's just brought the gap down to Evan David down slightly more.
Yeah, of course, our last Mexican winner being Noel Leon back in 2023 in race 1. Of course, Bryce Aaron would follow that. Later, Josh Mason as well, who made his return to the championship back in 2023 as well. Timek Aharcik, who could yet become the first pole to win in the Euroformula Open at Hungaroring since Artur János back in the first occasion of us coming here back in 2014. And who won the second race? None other than IndyCar favourite Alex Palou from Spain.
He's doing rather well at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, remarkably well.
I think...
Yeah, crushing the IndyCar at the moment.
Not bad at all, is he? I mean, yeah, won some race called the Indy 500 or something this year. I don't know, very small event. Not many people there. No. Went a little bit under the radar.
No, he's phenomenal talent, Alex Palou, and obviously cutting his teeth in the Euroformula Open Championship in his first stint in F3 machinery and single-seaters, and now, of course, doing his utmost to once again win an IndyCar championship. And, of course, we've had many great drivers come through here. Of course, Filippo Drugovich, the first driver to maximise the weekend and take victories in both races. Back then, of course, we ran 2 races up until 2020. Well, it was 2020. Of course, 2021 was the first time when we ran 3 races. Incidentally, we saw Cameron Dass, who is another United States driver, finishing in front in race 3. As we now see some moves from Ed Pearson, looking to try and move himself aloft now ahead of Evan David. Once again, David, I think just having some problems here with a little bit of tyre wear now coming out of turn 13, and obviously is now being pressurised and potentially overtaken here by Pearson if he carries this on. Yeah,
that time it was David who actually ran off the road in the middle of the 8, 9, 10 complex. And so that's dropped him off the back of Diego De La Torre and back into the clutches of the lead Nielsen Racing car of Ed Pearson. Won the first race of the season, kept up Nielsen's record of winning on debut in LMP3, LMP2 and in single-seaters. Oh, this is not good news for one of the sister Nielsen cars, though. Finn Green coming into pit lane.
Yeah, it looks like he might be suffering an issue, maybe just looking to get something checked. He was in a bit of a fight earlier on with Benjamin Berta and, of course, Sean Rashid. Now, whether he's suffering something or an issue underneath, a little moment there as well for Diego De La Torre, who's currently sat in 5th place at the moment. Evan David now seeing this as a potential opportunity, as perhaps a moment of weakness there for Diego De La Torre. Let's take a look at this again. There's Michael Shin moving through, and he actually ran exceedingly wide coming through turn 4 and licked the grass, and very nearly hitting the apex while returning to the circuit to Diego De La Torre. So not an optimal line at all, but Kaharchik in a world of his own out there. Currently 5.7 clear of Jose Garfias.
These drivers just really struggling to keep it on the racetrack at the moment and struggling for grip out there. Of course, it is rather baking hot on the racetrack. 44 degrees track temperature out there. Should be some good grip out there still, but I guess the car's just sort of floating across the road a little bit, and struggling to keep the tyres in the working window and also to maintain the grip levels throughout this entire race. There is Matteo Trinananzi, Tomek Karlczyk's race engineer. That team for 12 years, actually, it says 13th year with PVM Racing across the Italian F4 program, of course, formerly with Francesco Simonazzi in this championship as well. Very happy with this boy, Tomek, after qualifying, just coaching him through this race, just coming up to half race distance now, and yeah, 5.8 to the good is Karlczyk now. Gap between Delator and Yevon David continues to ebb and flow as one driver runs off the track, then the other fall back into the clutches of another. I would not say this 5th place is entirely secure for Diego Delator.
No, it definitely looks like it's a driver that could be pounced on. Incidentally, if Karlczyk does bring this one home, it really does shrink the points gap, obviously between Yevon David and also Michael Shin and Karlczyk. Of course, coming into all the closing stages. This actually works greatly in favour of Karlczyk. Of course, Ed Pearson coming into the championship 4th as well, just in behind, and he is currently further back behind Yevon David. So it really is a huge opportunity here for Karlczyk to repair, obviously, the issues that he had from Portimao, essentially, really, and also at the same time Hockenheim, and try and get himself back to within the window of where he was at Spa.
So this time it was Everett Stack who ran wide on the exit of turn 11 on that occasion, but still 2 seconds clear of Michael Shin, so he's still got a good bit of room to play with there. But yeah, for Karlczyk, this is super ideal because he'll take quite a chunk out of Yevon David's championship lead and to Michael Shin as well, who's 2nd in the championship, and of course don't forget back in that
14 points
pole
between
position,
them.
yeah, back in that pole position point as well. He'll try and bag that fastest lap point as well. Those little things, they do add up at the end of the season. And it is Karlczyk with the best lap time at the moment. The only driver who's been able to lap within the 135s. So at the moment, yeah, well, it looks like it will be the full complement of points from this first race.
Well, still got 8 laps to bring it home, but I mean, purple in the first sector on this lap as well, on top of the fastest lap that he did muster in lap 6 of a 1:35.749. Could yet be surpassed here by Tomek Karlczyk himself, and once again still pulling all the stops. 6.6 now between Karlczyk and Garfius right now, and this is a huge opportunity also for Garfius to really announce himself more or less further up into the championship equation. Of course, winning in race 2 back at Hockenheimring after a 4th place finish back in race 1, and then corresponding with yet another podium in race 3 with a 3rd place finish on top of that. And of course, Garfius, after chatting with him, experiencing his first taste of F3, is now up the inside from Ed Pearson now, and Yevon David onto the gravel trap just on the inside coming out of turn 13, and it's left Pearson now up and ahead of the Sri Lankan line, moving up into 6th place. So the Brits answering back, and that will be quite a cathartic moment, no question, for Ed Pearson, who has had his own troubles coming out of qualifying this weekend.
And yet more points in favour of Tomek Karlczyk in terms of the championship. You're going to see that moment again. Pearson on the inside, and didn't leave Yevon David much room on the outside there, did he? But, he'll argue that he's entitled to do that. Of course, no Formula 1 rules here. We don't care who's ahead of the apex.
Well, at the moment, it's Ed Pearson who's in 6th spot now, and seemingly has managed to pull somewhat of a gap ahead of Yevon David. It is increasing. If anything now, Barrichello is becoming the threat now for Yevon David, so must be some severe grip issues here for the Sri Lankan.
That was a big lock-up from someone, wasn't it? Didn't quite see who it was.
Fastest lap taken again from Tomek Karlczyk. Now it's now 8.5 seconds now between Karlczyk and Garfius up at the top as we now take a look at a slow-mo here. This is the pole on top, and I must say it does look like it's going to be in good hands here to see yet another pole victorious here in the Euroformula Open Championship, following on from Artur Janos back when the championship was returned in its current guise back in 2014, and that was for RP Motorsports all the way back then. Of course, we've seen quite a few different teams strike the front, but in recent years it's all been about Motor Park. As now we watch as Fernando Barrichello comes around the final corner. But incidentally, this will be BVM Racing taking yet another victory, and in fact, it'll be their third in the last 2 years if we couple up Francesco Simonazzi's double back last year after Brad Benavides got his first around this circuit, as we now watch as now Benjamin Berta at his home racetrack looks to try and close up on Fernando Barrichello, whose father Rubens once again is watching on in the garages.
And it was Eduardo Barrichello making his Le Mans debut a few weeks ago. And no Rubens was there. I'm sure that Fernando would have popped his head into the garage as well to show his support for his younger brother as well.
Of course, Eduardo Barrichello also having a pretty bright single-seater career as well, taking part in the Formula Regional Series, and of course since then moving across, as many drivers do, into the world of prototypes, and obviously experience in the world of Le Mans. We've seen quite a few now becoming successful and look into the worldly opportunities that are available to them. Of course, many of them now moving into the realms of GT3, and we've seen, of course, Laventia Revest, who is, of course, a former Euroformula driver, currently leading the championship, or coming into the weekend leading the championship in the International GT Open, and looking to win the title this year on his return to the GT Sport organisation, but under a different umbrella, as now we watch as David comes through turn 13 again with Fernando Barrichello hot on his heels, the Brazilian, with a huge opportunity here. Should he get the run, if he can get in the slip, it'd be a great chance here for Barrichello to then launch himself into P7 to at least bring yet more points back. What this does mean as well is that Everett Stack could be on point here for a rookie win to open up the weekend as well. Of course, Yevon David has been dominating that front for the majority of this season, but this will be a huge opportunity now for Everett Stack, not just in terms of the overalls. He's currently sat third overall at the moment, but a rookie race win, I would imagine, would go a long way towards his season so far, and at least in a bid to close the gap to Yevon David at the top of the rookie standing.
Yeah, still can't help but feel that's really only going one way, with Yevon David fighting for the overall championship as well as the rookie honours. So that's open for drivers coming from lower performance series who are under the age of 18 at the start of the season. So it's Everett Stack and Yevon David who qualify for that rookie status. Fernando Barrichello was coming in that class last year.
Yeah, and of course Barrichello victorious back at Austria in wet conditions. It was a spirited drive. He did lose a place incidentally, but eventually got it back, as we take a look at Jose Garfias coming through the chicane, and full commitment over the curbs there from the young Mexican, who, as we said, now recently experienced life in FIA Formula 3. Of course, racing in the world of Nakam F4 back in 2019, taking 3 victories that season, and then, of course, since then, racing in Euro Cup 3 over 2 years in 2023 and 2024, taking 5 podiums after a run at the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship as well in 2024. But here in the Euroformula Open now, after debuting last year, and also with Ed Pearson, who debuted in our last year's campaign in the final year with the Dallara 320 chassis before moving to the 324, with the air intake now being removed off the chassis of the car once again. A little bit of an uncomfortable run there for Fernando Barrichello. Did not pack the momentum probably required to get closer to Yevon David on the run down through towards turn 2, but the Brazilian will have a chance again coming in towards turn 3, now coming up the hill. But if anything, David's delta between himself and Pearson now sinking, or should I say growing larger. It's 2.3 now, the deficit between the two. And Ed Pearson, if anything now, on the tail of Diego Della Torre in a battle over 5th place.
Benjamin Berta doing a great job here in 9th position on the back of Barrichello, on the back of Yevon David, ahead of Sean Rashid as well, and a wild card driver, a local driver, a Hungarian who's been racing in the Austrian Formula 3 Championship in the predecessor to this car. It's his first time driving the 324 chassis, and it's his 3rd wild card appearance here in the Euroformula Open Championship in Budapest specifically. And yeah, on the tail end of the pace quite nicely straight away, as we have Diego Della Torre here in 5th position with Ed Pearson now chasing him down. So the pace is very much in favour of Pearson at the moment, but now he's hit that sort of ball of dirty air. There's there the Briton in 6th position, former GB3 racer. Making the switch halfway through last year to join the Euroformula Championship with Team Motorpark, joining the Nielsen squad, very much spearheading their first single-seater campaign. Working with Ayrton Simmons as their driver coach as well. This was racing in Euroformula Open with RR and Drive X back in the day.
Michael Shin's got a chance here at a potential podium. Currently sat 1.1 behind Everett Stack, and he's lapping faster over the last lap, only by a fragment, but nearly a whole tenth. And on top of that, lapping faster in the first sector as well, and it was 2 tenths actually in that first sector now. And like I said, it doesn't take long for 1.1 to then all of a sudden turn into 8 tenths, and then as soon as you're in that slipstream, it makes life a little bit easier. Obviously now coming through the second sector, Stack with a 34.4 on that occasion. Stack was quicker in the middle sector in comparison to Shin. But you never know, with 3 laps to go, and things can change very quickly here in motorsport now, as we see the 24 of Ed Pearson on the back of Diego Della Torre within 0.4 of a second. All it takes is one error, as we said, coming through the final corner, and Pearson really whipping the tail out on his Nielsen car coming through turn 14. Now Yevon David, who's in front of Fernando Barrichello, still consolidating that position in 7th. There is our race leader, Timothy Kaharczyk, looking to usher in yet another victory against his name in what would be his 3rd so far this campaign, and would break the hoodoo of not going from pole to victory. We saw how reserved he was in his interview with Alfredo at the end of qualifying, that despite achieving that pole position, in his mind the job was not done as of yet. And placed his sights, obviously aware of the fact that he has not yet won a race from pole position. This is his chance to obviously shut that out. And of course, with 2 laps to go, he's just looking to bring this home. And he's 12.6 now clear of Jose Garfias. And I'm sure Giuseppe Mazzotti is going to be thrilled with this performance.
I wonder how much the absence of Michael Shin alongside him maybe helped psychologically. We had a bit of a swapper there. But
let's not curse him, Chris.
No. Yeah, how much Michael Shin not being there just helped him relax and do the start, because he had less opposition and not someone to worry about from the other side of the grid, of course. Got away exceptionally well, which has been the weak point for Timic so far this year. Now he's 1 lap away from victory.
Yeah, on the final lap now is the young Pole, and looking to make it 3 this season. And ultimately, this will place him just 1 behind Yevon David, as now we see the battle start to unfold. Looks like Barrichello has actually pounced on Yevon David as well, and this will open up a chance also for Benjamin Berta in his home weekend. So Yevon David in free fall right now, 8th place at this moment. This was the moment, and Yevon David running wide. I definitely think there's a grip issue out there for the young Sri Lankan. And now Barrichello up the inside, coming through turn 12, and it just picked his spot. A fantastic move was needed to be made. Brilliant job from Fernando Barrichello to get that done, and now he's up into 7th.
This is the least Yevon David performance I've seen all season.
In fact, I think it might be up there as one of his most challenging results of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Though actually saying it was 10th place back at Hockenheimring, race 1.
But that was after he had the contact with Timic, wasn't it? And he had the front wing.
I believe he had to come into the pits to have it checked as well.
So
yeah, not a lot he could have done about that. But certainly in terms of an on-track performance, this is certainly not ideal for one Yevon David. But as far as Timothy Kaharczyk's concerned, this is certainly a momentous visit here to Budapest, and managing to return after a difficult time back at Hockenheimring, despite the podium finishes in places. He wanted to return to the winner's circle once again, and now, after registering 2 victories, it all commenced properly back at Spa. He followed it up again at the same location. Race 2 and race 3 brought him success, and now returning to the top for the first time since Artur Janusz, a pole scores a victory here in the Euroformula Open Championship at Hungaroring. It's Timothy Kaharczyk, your victor, for the 3rd time this season, with Jose Garfias coming across the line in 2nd place. Another podium visit for the young man, hailing from Mexico, with Everett Stack, winner of the rookie race and 3rd overall. A fantastic performance from young Everett Stack. Returns to the podium once again to make it 3 Americans back to back to back, taking podiums through the course of the last 3 campaigns here in the Euroformula Open Championship here at Hungaroring as well. A fantastic effort on Stack's level, managing to keep Michael Shin at bay. But this is the man that I'm sure will be absolutely thrilled. From lights to flag, he reigned in the success. Timek Kaharczyk, to all the pole fans out there, Timek has done it.
Got the monkey off his back, hasn't he? So he's nailed the start, lights to flag victory. Of course, had 2 wins to his name before this weekend, but they were rather different encounters, really. That was a bar brawl with the Evan David over at Spa, whereas this was just pure dominance and absolutely nailing the starts as well. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, returning back to the top and a position I'm sure he'd love to get used to again. It's Timek Kaharczyk, your winner for BVM Racing. Jose Garfias in second, ahead of Everett Stack in third, and winner of the rookies, of course, Stack. Michael Shin fourth, Diego Della Torre in fifth, Ed Pearson in sixth, Fernando Barrichello in seventh, with Evan David down in eighth, Benjamin Berter in ninth, and Sean Rashid in 11th. We saw Finn Green come into the pits earlier on. He did finish the race in 11th spot for Nielsen Racing, but 2 laps down. So now as they take the lap of honour, it is, of course, Timek Kaharczyk who is your victor. And once again, the points gap is going to shrink between Kaharczyk and Michael Shin and Evan David. In fact, it's going to be very close, I think, between him and Shin. Of course, Shin coming away with 4th, which means he'll scoop 12 points off the back of this, pushing him up to 157. Obviously, with the 25 that has been muscled in now by Timek Kaharczyk, that places him on 157 as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that would mean, in fact, I think it'd be 158 with the pole point as well. So that should put him 1 point ahead, I think. My calculations are correct, ahead of Michael Shin. So basically pushes him second in the championship.
Nice and tight. That's the way we like it. And just a super important result for Timek Kaharczyk there to close in on the championship leader. It's very fortunate that a result like this should come when Evan David was seemingly having a bit of a mare of a day. Love to go down and find out what he was struggling with, because that is a very bizarre performance from our championship leader. Finished down in 8th place on pace. So remember, he got up to 4th and then he's fallen back down to where he started again ultimately, but let's focus on this man. A remarkable 3rd victory of the season for Timek Kaharczyk, closing right in on the championship leader as well. And I'm sure this one is going to feel very good for not only himself, but the BVM Racing team as well, as we're going to hear the cheers in Parc Fermé from the Italian squad.
That definitely reigns in a finally I've done it, I think, on part of Timek Kaharczyk. I mean, obviously, he got the monkey on his back in terms of getting a first race win of the season, which of course was nailed down back at Spa-Francorchamps, though Jose Garfias getting a big hug as well. Everett Stack, I think, can be absolutely thrilled with his performance also this weekend. And for BVM, incidentally, we head back to the last couple, the last occasion we were here back in 2024, Francesco Simonazzi, a race winner twice over. That means that that's 3 race wins in their last 4 races for BVM here at Hungaroring, and a trend I'm sure Giuseppe Mazzotti would be keen to continue with heading into race 2 and 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, they very much broke the duck last year, didn't they? That when you win race 1, you start from 6th, and then you can't win race 2 either. Of course, that'll be Ed Pearson starting from reverse grid pole tomorrow, with Diego Della Torre on the front row of the grid as well. They're finishing 6th and 5th respectively.
And of course, Nielsen, a team that could do with some massive results as well to help their championship cause. Of course, entering the championship for the first time. But let's take you through the top 3. It was Everett Stack who stood tall in P3. This time, the man from the United States representing Moto Park. He'll be back on the podium, as will Jose Garfias, also representing Moto Park team from Mexico as well. But our race winner for the 3rd time this campaign, it's Timek Kaharczyk, who has nailed it for the first time since Arta Janos back in 2014. And he's standing by with Alfredo Filipponi for an interview.
Timek, it's done for the first race of the weekend. Very warm, but no particularly.
I mean, for me, it was not interesting, so it was best possible race. Finally made a good start, hold on to the lead, and yeah, it was quite tough, it was quite rough and physical. It was super warm inside the car, but yeah, in general, super happy to bring P1 home, and yeah, the pace been mega, and super, super grateful.
good, and this is good for the championship.
Yeah, surely. I mean, I've seen my probably championship contenders struggle a bit this race, so super happy to see also a lot of Polish flags around the track. Really grateful for their support, and yeah, really happy.
Well done. Podium now. That way.
A lot of fans indeed gathering to watch Timek Kaharczyk. Let's see how he did it. A great start off the line. Obviously, Michael Shin, who was due to start on the front row alongside him, had to start from the rear owing to something on the formation lap. But a great start for Kaharczyk. Elsewhere, Yevon David also getting a decent start right to the get-go. Just seemed to fall away for him for the latter part of the race. Benjamin Berta also with a very big move up around the outside, eventually going onto the off-track. We would ultimately see as well Everett Stack doing battle as well with Yevon David. Of course, David then having to go off circuit, which opened up an avenue for an overtake this time around for Everett Stack to eventually move into the rookie race lead and taking P3 overall. Michael Shin with a big recovery after moving down the rear of the order during the starting grid phase and then moving ahead of fellow title rival Yevon David as well. We rode on board with Yevon David, who once again would have witnessed another car going off wide. Of course, Diego Della Torre having his own fair share of moments out there as well. And David would have his own fair share too after coming toe-to-toe with Ed Pearson in towards the final corner at turn 14. And then it would be the turn of Fernando Barrichello to launch himself up the inside at turn 12 and then managing to get the move one and done after a little mistake there from Yevon David, which would not affect the illustrious lead put together by Timek Kaharczyk. A winner here at Hungaroring, celebrating BVM's third race win in their last 4 races. This is what it's done to the championship with Yevon David leading the way now on 167. It's 10 points now to Michael Shin at the moment in behind. Just one ahead of Timek Kaharczyk. My maths was close, not quite right, but Timek Kaharczyk in third place. 11 points behind our championship leader, Yevon David, and Jose Garfias on 117. The championship gaps are coming down by the moment. 11 points between the top 3, and here are our top 3 in terms of the podium as well. Everett Stack, Jose Garfias, Timek Kaharczyk, and of course representative from BVM celebrating a winnings team award as we now have the Polish national anthem.
Big applause.
So we are, Timek Kaharczyk coming out of it a race winner once again. So obviously still third in the championship, but like I said, just a point behind the man in P2, Michael Shin. If anything though, 11 points between the top 3. Certainly presents a mouth-watering season that we've got ahead of us as the trophies are presented by the Pirelli representative to P3's Everett Stack. Busy, Chris, at the top of the championship.
Yeah, 11 points between the top 3 is great stuff, but Michael Shin and Yevon David will have an opportunity to return serve in races 2 and 3. Kaharczyk will go from 6th for both races, and actually I think Yevon David, he'll go from 8th for the other 2 races as well. But Michael Shin will be starting in 3rd for tomorrow's race 2, and then 5th should be for race 3 as well. So opportunity for Michael to close things up as well. But elsewhere, of course, you've got 4th podium finish for Jose Garfias. His first time finishing 2nd this year. It's been 2/3 a win and now 2nd, and a 2nd podium as well for Everett Stack after his 2nd place finish in race 1 in Hockenheim, on the podium here again in Budapest.
Yeah, fantastic start for Timek Kaharczyk, and there'll be more to come, I'm sure, tomorrow. Do join us, of course, for the action that is due to come. We've got 2 more races to bring you. That will be, of course, arriving tomorrow. We thank you all for your company, but from me, George Morgan, and of course, Chris Stevens, as we now watch the drivers take the champagne. Do join us tomorrow as we once again go racing at Hungaroring. But from all of us here, goodbye.